The producer's letter for The Lord of the Rings Online has just been released, and there is a lot of crazy stuff to go over for LOTRO in 2023. Perhaps the biggest shock of them all is a new class is planned for later this year with the major expansion that's coming in the fall. But before we get ahead of ourselves with that very exciting stuff, let's start off from the beginning. So as they covered, there was a lot of great stuff for LOTRO in 2022, but we're more interested in what is happening this year. So starting off the roadmap here, in the first quarter, what we have coming up relatively soon, we have a new instance cluster, which will include some new group content for endgame players, including a raid that will be returning to Angmar as a little preview. We'll get more into that later. And then they'll expand the delving system. We already know that's coming to school and library at the Emirdane to start. They're doing some class updates. We know that's with the warden and captain as well. They're also going to be revamping some systems, including power and crafting. I'm really interested to see how that goes. I definitely think the crafting system could be updated and honestly completely reworked. I would love if they just got completely rid of guild crafting, to be honest, but we'll see where that goes. They're also talking about the return of Ill Omens. They're also doing some events, I believe seasonal events for monster players, and then we'll have the new LI reward track in Spring Festival. That's pretty normal stuff. Similarly, in the spring, we start off with relatively normal stuff like 16th anniversary. We have the festival reward track, ongoing updates with class updates, crafting, monster player, but they did talk about landscape updates. Definitely piques my interest there, at least. We'll see if there are more details on that. And moving to summer, we'll be getting another Further Adventures update along with ongoing work on basically everything else and some seasonal events. And finally, the exciting stuff in fall, and something I just cannot believe, is the new class. We already knew about new level cap and it'd be a major expansion, expand the story, all that sort of stuff. New biomes is a very interesting tease. So we've already talked about saltwater. That would be one of the things coming in the major expansion. But new biomes, hence to me, once again, Harad and Desert. But let's go back to the main page and start getting into more details on what is coming in the year 2023. For a little bit more details on the return to Karn Doom in Angmar. So that is kind of interesting how that will work in with the story and presumably what is going to be in the rest of the update. We don't have too much information there. So return to Karn Doom will have new instances. It sounds like it won't be returning to the old Karn Doom and Angmar instances. Now, another note for this update is that the delving system will be expanded to library and school at the Emirdane, as was previously teased. So this is going to be 3-man content. Previously, the delving system was for missions, which can be run solo or duo. So this will be the first time in slightly larger group content where we will have the delving system and you can go higher tiers and higher rewards when you go to higher tiers. It sounds like there's also some of the, like usual, they'll be updating the system with the release of that update. Some of you may have already seen that the warden changes from alpha were leaked, but I will not be covering that and waiting until there's more official news and announcements on that information, especially because things can change. But yes, the captain and warden are going to be updated. Another thing they're doing with more generally in the systems is revisiting power. And as exciting as everything is in this letter for us LOTRO players in 2023, I am very skeptical of this particular part and honestly not necessarily looking forward to it. So they're talking about revisiting power. That is the resource you use to use abilities. In particular, it looks like they're targeting management of power in dungeon and raids, and to me that sounds very unexciting. I've thought way back since Mana and WoW and even Power and LOTRO in the old days, I've never been a fan of power management, and just based on what is here in the letter, I am honestly not really looking forward to that, but we'll see what it looks like when it actually comes to game. But I did want to express some concern there because I've never been a fan of that mechanic. So on to the crafting system. So that's going to be some revising work that is going to be going on throughout the entirety of 2023, it sounds like. And their end goal is to break the vocations apart. So you can actually choose which professions you want on your character. I don't know if there will still be a limit of 3 or how that will work. And they're also looking to add best in slot or like very competitive items to crafting. I think that part can be pretty exciting. And they'll expand upon crafting systems that may have been overlooked for a long time. That part scares me a little bit because there's been a lot in the past, I think especially since around Gondor times, of crafting that I haven't been a big fan of, where they've kind of gone by the wayside. I think that's been a good thing. So we'll see how that goes, and they do mention essences specifically. I know some people like essences and some people don't like them, so take that as you will. And really, for me, one of the most exciting parts of crafting is gathering. So I hope that crafting is not going to be necessary for this competitive armor that they are talking about, and that you will be able to do crafting on alts for your main or something like that. And also just having some value to being a gathering profession character. So they are talking about some continued work on festivals and events. We know LOTRO players love those, myself included, even though I don't always get to the festivals. I still like them, and I like a lot of the instances that you can run with them because that's a sort of contained thing within the festival and something you can do with a group of players and almost mimics like the regular group content that you would run. But again, it's something new, something fresh. So we already covered the Ill Omens will return. They're also talking about expanding rewards for the Spring Festival. I would hope that that means they're also going to expand rewards for other festivals. And then I thought this was interesting. PvMP events inside the Etten Wars that works kind of like festivals, it sounds like, in cyclical events. And then it says that revolve around different crafting professions. So maybe crafting will be involved with PvMP somehow. It sounds a little bit odd to me right now. Perhaps that's something that's even in-game or has been in-game in the past, and I'm just not too familiar with it. But I think the idea of PvMP events definitely sounds interesting. I don't know if that alone could actually get me to playing PvMP, but it is possible if there is enough exciting stuff there that I will eventually venture into the Etten Wars again. It really has been a long time since I have been there. Anyway, moving on from that, we have the spring and summer months where we will be shifting to growing threats posed by enemies soon to be unleashed in our next major expansion. Now, to me, this is always something that's been, I'd almost describe disappointing. I don't even think that's quite the right word, but something that is odd in LOTRO's past development is that they would have an update, so they'd start like a book quest. Something like the Legacy of Durin is a perfect example. They started that before the expansion was launched, and then by the time the Gundabad expansion launched, that was the end of the book quest story with the Legacy of Durin. So we had level 130 content that started the Legacy of Durin, then level 140 capped it off, and then the whole expansion period was like, okay, we have Gundabad, then we have all this other stuff that's unrelated because, well, we already finished the Legacy of Durin. I really don't like that personally, and I was really hoping, especially with the year we had in 2022, that they're holding off starting the next major storyline. When we actually get the expansion proper, then they can expand on that with updates past the expansion and go on that sort of cycle instead. So anyway, that rant aside, I'm just hoping that whatever next major storyline and story quest that we have in game, that's going to be introduced in the expansion proper and not in this lead up that sounds like it's going to be in Gondor, which, hey, another hint for Harad if we're in Gondor. So Gondor is now going to be in a relatively peaceful state after what we have experienced in the Lord of the Rings story with the first 4 volumes, and they're going to be assessing strange goings-ons. There, I think, are a few possibilities, but again, that could point to Harad. I believe the word strange was used in, who was it, Aragorn that called these stars strange in Harad? Somebody can let me know if I got that wrong, who said that. But anyway, there still are going to be some threats that are there that we have to fight, and that will be building up to the next major expansion storyline. And then we once again have the usual updates that they'll be working on regular stuff. That's something we always know is ongoing, but not the most exciting to see in a letter like this when we have other things. So once we get towards summer, it sounds like the update is tentatively titled Watching the Wing. That is a kind of interesting one. That honestly makes me think of like a Feywild type area. I'm not sure if there's anything close to like that in Lord of the Rings or Middle Earth, but I'm sure that's not what it is. But that will be with new further adventures. There will be new festival rewards for Farmer's Fair, Treasure Bugon, and that sort of stuff. Now, one more note in here is about adding the delving system to higher difficulty tiers. One of the biggest concerns with me with the delving system and being expanded to other content as LOTRO is having 2 difficulty systems at once, where you have one, the regular tiers 1 through 5, and then 2, you have the 10 delving tiers on top of that. That would basically make 50 tiers worth of content that you could run, and it just does not sound like a good, straightforward system to me at all. I'm really hoping what they mean is expanding delving tiers to higher than 10 rather than having 2 difficulty systems ongoing at once. That just sounds like a nightmare and a mess to me. Something that I also find interesting with Watching the Wing is it somehow relates to the return to Khorne Dûm that will be early in the year because they'll be making additions to the 3-player instances. Maybe that's talking about the delving system going to them, but I don't know. I'm interested to see if there's an actual relation with the in-game content, whatever story they have, or landscape content, to go on with that and kind of link the two together. We'll see how that works, but that sounds a bit odd right now, especially as we are working towards Gondor. That's why I'm not seeing the relationship right there, at least right now. And this has taken me forever to get through, and I think we can all agree with Orion here saying that this is very ambitious for LOTRO in 2023, but at the same time, that means it's very exciting for us players. So I did a quick preview of this letter before I started recording this video, but I actually did not see the bottom part here until right now. And this is where things, I guess, get really interesting with the future. So they wrapped up before the shadow and they were like, where do we want to go in the future? Well, a lot of them, it sounds like, wanted to go south to less traveled shores, across the Salty Sea, beyond the Bay of Belfalas, and to the shore of the Corsair Kings in Umbar. And we all know Umbar is in Harad. So all the speculation for me throughout this letter about Harad being next looks like it's basically confirmed here that we're going to Umbar, which is in Harad again. But with that being a tale for another day, we will leave that there for this video. Honestly, the most shocking thing to me is still the new class that is going to be added in the expansion. I am very much so looking forward to seeing what it is, what the possibilities are, so please let me know what you think it could be in the comments, and I might work on a video describing all sorts of different possibilities. But I hope you all enjoyed this video and learned something useful about LOTRO in 2023. Please consider liking and subscribing for more, and thanks for watching, everyone.